Well, hello everyone, welcome to Renovation Sportfish. What you just saw me do was install the last piece I had to install on the transom in the cockpit before I can prep and paint it. Now, what I'm not showing with that piece was filling in the screw holes where I pulled out those 4 temporary screws that I used. I filled those with some epoxy filler, and then I sanded that and the fillets on the edges, and that's what we're going to pick up when we actually get into the video here. Now, I don't know how much more painting I'm going to do, at least with the product that I'm using in this video, which is the Awlgrip, which is the product I used through the whole boat so far. So I left this video long and left all my little descriptions in and everything as I applied the product and prepped for the product. So if you're not into that kind of thing and you're just watching the video to see some guy paint the boat quickly, then you might want to fast forward to all that stuff, and then you'll get into a more normal length video that I normally put out. But I left it in as a resource in case anybody actually wanted to use this product, and I give my little opinions about the product along the way. I'm not sponsored by this product or any products, by the way. I'm just giving you my opinion after using them, so take it as you will with that. Now, there's a lot of other techniques and products and materials that you can be using to paint a boat, and I just suggest you check everything out before you actually do it, because they all have their goods and bad spots, and you can see somebody else do the same thing and maybe their technique works better for you, so you have to make a decision. So that's why the video's a little bit long. So with that, let's get into painting this transom. Alright, so it's Friday. My goal for the weekend is to get this transom primered, or at least get it started with primer. So I was over here yesterday and I started sanding it, and I was noticing there was some, ripples in the surface. Now, I just put this fiberglass on, sanded it in my shop with my dual action sander. And the dual action sander, it sands good, but it never flattens anything. I always feel like it still keeps things like ripply. You need a board or something. And I feel like even like what I'm going to use here is this hand sander. And I think this flattens it out a lot better than that thing. It's more work, obviously, but I just feel like I'm going to not have to do it over again if I use something like this. And I have a big board and everything, but this is all curved. The whole surface is curved, so I think this is just a better way to go. Now, these spots I just ran my hand over this, basically, figured out where I felt ripples, and just filled those areas in. And it's very thin coat. Now, I've had some experience with this when I was doing the flybridge and the walls and the flybridge, and I just didn't do this step. I just said, well, I'll just primer it. I'll put enough primer on there to smooth out the ripples. Well, you need a lot of primer to smooth out the ripples, because I'm not using a super high build primer, and it just didn't work. I had to keep painting it and repainting it, and that's a lot of money, very expensive. So, I mean, at that time there wasn't this nice total boat, total fair out there, and this makes it a lot easier because it sands really well and it goes on really well. It looks like big huge patches here, and they are large in surface area, but thickness wise they're very thin. And I actually just sanded a piece right here that was probably as big as this spot, and it took off probably 95% or more of the fairing compound. Very little. I just spread it out pretty wide just so it'll fair in nicer and it won't have a lump. So I'm just gonna sand these areas down, and hopefully I don't have to fill them again. I think just doing this one time is going to help a lot. I don't care if there's some ripples in it. I'm not going for like an automotive type of perfect non-ripple kind of a thing. It is a boat. I am painting it with a roll and tip method, so there's going to be brush marks and bugs and all kinds of other stuff in here. I know that from experience, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want it to just stand out, that's all. So, I'm going to get going sanding all this stuff. So that's what it takes to get that one area sanded. Wasn't too bad. And I'm left with a couple areas right here and right here that have very little filler, and it's smooth as can be. I use 80 grit on here, by the way. And you saw me going diagonally and straight. You just hit all your angles, and that's all there is to it. Just keep working at it, and that should be nice with no ripple, or very little ripple if there's anything. So I'm just going to continue on with this and have some fun. So I'm going to be using Awlgrip paint products for this paint job, like I have on the rest of the boat. And this is the primer I'm going to use, 545 epoxy primer. So you got the converter and the base. Alright, so it's been a while since I painted anything with the Awlgrip, so I just wanted to go over the application guide here beforehand. I kind of read it this morning, but I just wanted to double check, triple check, make sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I like to follow the instructions. This is all part of the same application guide, which you can download from their site, PDF. These pages I printed out here are just our application of all their products. So it's we've got a lot more prep stuff in here, like sanding and all that kind of stuff. And then this is just the 545 primer I'm using. It's just how to apply this, and it has some quick instructions on how to sand and what to use for sandpaper in here. Now I've already sanded it with 120. They suggest 100 to 150 in here. This is more overall for all kinds of primers and things. So this says 120 to 220. So I'm just going to follow the paint one, and it falls in the range of both of them anyways. So that's been done. I've already sanded everything, and so the next step, so the paint product data is more from here out is more about recoating times and mixing. And I'm not going to get into any of that. If you're going to use any products, I suggest just look at the instructions. Here it says to blow off with clean compressed air and wipe it with some dry rags at the same time. I don't have compressed air, so I'm just going to wipe it many times. This doesn't really mention for the primer application using their prep. When you sell a prep, and you can wipe on a cleaning solvent, whatever. They don't mention it in here, but I'm going to go over it because I'm probably got oils and everything else from my fingers on here, so I'm going to use that and do that step too. And then they say to tack it off. They sell tack rags. I use their tack rags actually. They're not very tacky, and I think that's why they recommend using them, because they're not going to leave any kind of sticky residue that you would get from a regular tack rag. So I use those. I'll go over it with those, and then it's ready to paint. The other steps I have to do here is I have to tape everything off in between there, and I'll probably wipe it down a couple times with the tack rags during that process, and then it's time to apply it. Now I'm going to use a brush and a roller, and I mostly try to use a roller because the brushing the stuff on doesn't brush very well. You can use a brushing reducer with it. I found when I've used it with a brushing reducer, it makes it a lot more watery, and I don't feel like I get the coverage. And I really want to get the coverage. I don't care if it's blobby. I'd rather have more product on there to sand off than have thin spots and have to redo it a couple times. And that's just from experience and using this product. So it's not, they say right in here that it's not as good to roll it as spray it. But you can roll it. That's how I've done everything. You've got to use 3 coats. They say 2 to 3. Definitely got to use 3 if you're rolling it. They say you can tip it. I've never had any success trying to tip this stuff. It dries pretty quick. I mean, it's not fully dry, but it dries when you apply it. And you try to go back, it dries pretty quick. There's no tipping it. And I don't think you're going to get it any smoother anyways by tipping it. You just make a mess. That's my experience with it. So I won't be doing that. I'll just be getting the product on there as much as I can, and not going to worry about a lot of drips or anything like that. The stuff sands real easy, so I try not to get drips, but if I get a drip, it's not the end of the world. So that's what we're going to be up to, and I got to get started on it. I'm going to crank this fan because it's pretty hot, and That's it. Alright, so while I'm waiting for the mixture, the reducer and the primer to do its induction cycle of 15 minutes, and so I'm going to tack rag everything off. And here's the tack rags that they make, deluxe tack rags. So we are going to tack this off, and then by the time I'm done with this, should be ready to start rolling on the primer. Now I've got two of these rollers sitting around. I've already tested. I like to roll around and test to make sure I can get in. And then I got two of these brushes here, just for some of the edges and things. So I always have two ready. And of course, this stuff really stinks, so you got to wear a respirator, which that's going to make it even hotter than it is now. So anyways, let me get this tacked up, and the paint should be ready to apply. I like to, sorry for the fan on, but I have to. I like to tack out the actual tray because you'd be surprised how much dirt that's in the tray. So these areas were actually better to do with just a brush. I didn't even bother with the roller after trying a roller on this side. And I actually went back and went over all this with the brush too. So it worked out pretty good. The rest of it, you know, the roller part looks crummy, like I remembered how it worked. You know, the center part I did some brush on it too because the roller wasn't working great. But yeah, it's all blotchy and whatever. Now they say, you know, you could sand it between coats for a better result, but this stuff sands so easy, I don't think it's necessary. It's just an extra step. But all these little bumps and everything, they'll all sand out really easy. So here we go. We're done for the day. It's kind of cool to see it white. I'll back up way back so we can really see it here. And yeah. So, one more step closer to being finished. Now tomorrow I'll do 2 coats. I'll just give an update. I'm not going to film it. It's kind of a hard thing to film, I think, just because it's not easy to do, and it's hard to get a good angle when you're by yourself. If I had somebody else here working the camera, it would be easier, but whatever. That's it. Till tomorrow. Okay guys, well, it's day 2 of the priming. I'm here pretty early in the morning. I actually just finished priming. It's already hot and humid here, so I just wanted to get this done so I can come back later and get a second coat on. Third coat on, I mean. yesterday I filmed like the beginning of the priming, and I still didn't have my technique down. I hadn't picked up a brush and roller in 2 years, so I was clumsy, and it wasn't working out great. But by the time I was done yesterday, I kind of got my game plan and got my act together, and this morning it went a lot smoother. And I'll kind of show you what I did that made it a little easier. First thing I did was, I'll get over here and show you, I used a different roller. This one has a round edge on it instead of the square one I was using. I was trying to get in the corners, and that wasn't working with it, and I know better than that, because I remind myself that that's why I bought the rounded ones. So anyways, that made it a lot better. The other thing I did this morning was just roll the large areas first. Right above the cover boards here, I did do the edging on the top of the brush. I couldn't get up there with a roller, so I did that first. Then I rolled the entire large area here with the roller first, then put it aside. I was done with the roller, and then everything else I did with the brush. And I found that doing these vertical areas over here, which I'll show you a little closer, was much easier with the brush than the roller. That was, you know, not good to even try that. And I got really good coverage, and that's how it works. So let me show you how it looks, and I'll be back later. I'm like really sweaty right now because it was hot in here today, and this fan is kicked off right now. I got to get it on because it stinks. Here's the work. I'll get up under here so you can see how far I painted up there. I just put the tape up there because the roller was hitting that. I'm gonna have to do a little cleanup. I was finding that out in the first coat. But there it is. Second coat looks a little less blotchy. Still a little blotchy, but the roller doesn't put on a ton of material, and I don't tip it, so it's a little rough, but it's all right. I know three coats works, and there's plenty on all the little vertical pieces, like that piece and these pieces over here. Plenty of material on there. You can put a lot thicker with a brush. It's got kind of brush marks in it, but you can put it on thicker, and it works for getting in the corners a lot better too. You can see it's pretty rough in brush, and you can't fuss with it because it dries so fast. You can't just keep going over it. You gotta get it on there and walk away. And it doesn't really smooth out either. Whatever you put it on, that's what it looks like in the end. So that's it. So I'm gonna get out of here, let this dry a little bit, and come back tonight or late this afternoon. I gotta wait 12 hours, so that'll be like 7 o'clock or so, and yeah, we'll do the last coat. Okay, so here we are after 3 coats, and it's looking a lot less blotchy. Although I think I'm gonna come over here tomorrow morning just to make sure and go over the part I rolled, which is the main flat area, just with one more coat, because there's plenty on the other areas, but that area I'm still a little bit, it's probably fine, but I just don't want to sand through and then have to touch it up. So again tomorrow morning. I don't know if that's focusing, but it's close to 100 degrees in here right now, and feels even worse because it's super humid. And that's the reason why I'm probably not going to film too much today. I have to actually sand this down, and I'm not going to do it right now. I'm actually over here on my lunch break from work, and I'm just checking it out because I put a 4th coat on just the flatter areas here with the roller this morning. 3 might have been okay, but I decided to put a 4th one on there, and it was nice and cool this morning. Well, it was like 70, and paint goes on so much nicer when it's cool. Well, it was just went on really nice. So anyways, we are ready to sand this. I'm gonna have to take the tape off, and then we'll start sanding. Got to sand it with 220 and then 320. Probably gonna do it all by hand, and I'm probably not gonna film that. And then it'll be ready for paint. All right, well, this is the final sanding and taping day, and this is the hottest day that's ever been in this boat. I don't know if that's focusing or not, but it's 115 degrees in here right now. Oh my god. But We got this done this morning when it was about almost 80 or so, and I sanded all this down with I'll turn the fan off here. I'm just going to turn the fan off for a second because I can't survive in here without it. But anyways, there we go. That's sanded down with 220 the entire way. Finished that off this morning. Now I just have to go through and sand it real gently and easily with 320. And I just used my sanding block. I did not use the dual action sander. I could have used it on those flat parts, but I didn't want to take a chance. So I just used the sanding block with paper on it. And I also used my little, this out of the way, my little block thing here. So that's where we're at. Plan tonight, which I'm not going to film because I just got to survive here, is to sand this down with 320 and then clean it all up really good. Clean the whole area, dust it, actually vacuum it, and then tape it, retape it all, this side, and I got these little corners too. These are already done. These are sanded and done. So that's where we're at. All right, well, today's the big morning. I'm going to do my first coat of paint on this. I got it all sanded down yesterday, got it all taped up, got it all cleaned up, and I'm going to be concentrating really on painting today, and so the camera work may not be that great because I'm not going to be messing around with this camera. I'm going to probably try to move it and do what I did last time, but I don't know how it's going to work. Before I do that, I want to point out when I sanded this primer, there's a lot of pits and things from the roller, and you really can't see them really good. So I have this light here. It's got a couple different, it's not plugged in now, but it's got a couple different settings on it. I basically held it up against it so it casts a shadow onto the paint and move it around, and then I could see like where the craters were, because sometimes I call them craters, a little, just like roller marks or whatever, or even paint brush marks. You don't see them with the naked eye. You need something like that. So I went through and did that while I was sanding this yesterday, and I don't need it today, but I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so this is the morning that I'm going to start painting. I got my supplies here. I'll just show you really quick. I put 2 rollers here because I don't know if I want to use the rounded one or the square edge one. So I got that. This is my tipping brush, the Badger hair brush. If this doesn't work out good, I could use this one here. This is just a white bristle brush. And then this is the brush I'm going to use to actually brush paint on where I can't get with a roller. And I'll just have a tray sitting here like this with the brushes sitting in there. Probably some behind me too. And I've got backups of both of these here in case these get a little mucked up. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be probably a little bit clumsy at first because even though I did the primer, the paint may go on a little different. I'm going to try to roll it in this corner. I didn't have much success with the primer doing that, but I'm probably going to try that first. And if it doesn't work out on this first one, then I'll just resort to painting with a brush for that. So here's the camera set up. I'm going to take the microphone off because I'm going to have the fan on. You're not going to hear anything anyways. I'll just dub in some music or something. But yeah, so we got to do those. This is all ready to go, and then we'll paint this one. These two I probably won't film because at that point I'm just going to be trying to get it done. But anyways, we're ready to go here. I'm going to just mix the paint per the instructions. I'm probably going to add 10% slow brushing reducer. You can add up to 15. I'm going to try 10. If 10 isn't enough, I'll go to, I'll put a little drip in there while I'm working. And I'll just mix it into the tray, and we'll see how that goes. I've done that before. That works fine. 10 is just easy because it's easy to calculate. I'm going to mix up about 4 ounces of paint. It's probably way too much, but I don't want to be short. Okay, well, I have a few minutes here to wait for this to catalyze or induce itself. There's the paint mixed up there with the brush converter. There's the paint here. And this is the brush, it's the brush converter. So let's mix it 2 to 1. So you can see I got a piece of tape on here. These things confuse me sometimes, but I just found on the side here where the 4 ounce is, and then I know I gotta have it divided by 3, so I just follow it around. This one kind of matches 3 parts, so I just do 2 paint and 1 of the converter, and that's how it goes. So I'm letting that sit, and then once that sits for like 15 minutes or whatever the time is, I think it's 15 minutes, then I'm going to add some of this slow drying brush reducer, and that's just like a thinner. That's the one you could put in there up to 15%, and I'll mix a little bit in this thing just right at the bottom there. I'll do 10%, and I'll add it to the paint before I put it in the tray, and then I'll have some available in case I need to splash a little bit more in there if the paint's a little too thick when I'm rolling it or brushing it. So that's where we're at. We're just sitting around waiting. I just tacked everything out there, so we're good to go. Took my microphone off the camera, and a few more minutes I'll be doing this painting. This is when the anxiety kicks in, and you're like, is everything gonna go good? You think you plan, and there's always something. But anyways, a few minutes more. that's the first coat done. Now, I did have some issues, and I knew I was going to, and that's the whole thing with the first coat. That's where you're going to find out different things. I think I felt like the top area, which I don't even care about, like way up there, I was fussing around with that way too much. The brush I had was, I thought it would work. I kind of pre-tried it, but it wasn't working, and I was getting some drips up there. So what I think I'm going to do is next time I actually have this smaller little stubby thing that I made. I'm going to use this up there and just paint that first, and just utilize this little thing up there. So anyways, that's my fix for that. So that kind of threw me off, because I felt like that's all I was thinking about the whole time. I wasn't really thinking about the main part of it. So anyways, that's the learning on that, and that's good. The amount of paint I mixed up was good. I had left over, and that was perfect. 3 ounces would have been cutting it way too close. I did have an issue back here in this corner over here. It was just me rushing around, so I got a little drip and a little blob there. I kind of missed the spot. Those I basically did with the brush, and didn't even bother too much with the roller. Okay, well, it's been a week since I painted this. Now, I actually ended up doing 3 coats on here without sanding. So I was able to space them apart an hour and a half short of 24 hour, which 24 hours is the paint manufacturer's threshold for having to resand. So that third one I had to get up real early and get over here to get it in, but I got it on within the 24 hours. So the reason why I did that was because after the first coat I was noticing some cross-hatch sanding marks, and I did that with the 220. I sanded crosswise like that, 45s, and then 320 I sanded it just vertically, and that was supposed to eliminate those marks. Well, obviously I didn't get them all, because I was seeing them. So I wanted to get that third coat on to give me a little more material before I sand this down for the final coat. Now, it doesn't look that bad, actually. There's one drip and a few dust sparks, but even if there was final coat, I wouldn't even worry about them. But it is kind of rough because I didn't sand before the last coat. So I think I can get it better if I sand it and do it again. And that's what I'm going to do. These corners here, actually I don't even really have to sand these, but sand and paint these, but I'm going to do it anyways. Just because I would have to tape in the corner, and then I'd end up with a paint line. So I might as well just sand it. It's not going to take that long. Just paint the whole thing. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to sand all this down with 320, just going vertically. And I'm going to take my time doing it because I don't want to burn through or screw anything up too badly. And I want to make sure everything I'm going to paint is going to be not shiny, because if you don't sand it, the paint will not stick to it. And I know that because it happened to me on the flybridge, and the paint peeled off where I didn't sand it because I went a little further with the roller. So got to make sure you sand it all. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm not going to film it. I'm just going to do it. Hopefully I get it done tonight, but I don't know. It's getting kind of dark, so I might have to come back tomorrow, finish it off, clean it, tape it, and then see if I can get a final coat on here. The good news is I'm not seeing ripples in it, so when I did all my fairing for that part, it looks like it worked pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that part of it. It's just getting a little bit smoother, flatter, nicer finish on it. And hopefully we get it with the next try. If not, I'll sand it again and do it again. So that's what we're up to. Alright guys, well, as you can see, it's painted. You missed out. My intention here was to sand this and film what it looked like sanded before I actually painted it. Now, last time I filmed, I said I was going to sand that night, and I did. But it took me more than just that one night to sand it. It took me that night and then half of last night to sand it. And I did it all with 320 grit on a sanding block. Now, I've used a dual action sander before, but I don't like to do it on the last coat, especially because sometimes you get little paint buildup and you start sanding it and all of a sudden you get this little squiggle, you don't see it, and it's in your paint and you got to resand it and paint it over again. So I'd rather just do it the other way with a sanding block going straight up and down and manually do it and sweat a little and get it done right the first time, hopefully. There's less chance of burning it down to the primer that way too, I think. So that's the way I like to do it now, because I had tried it the other way, so I know how the other way can work. So anyways, it was a little harder than I thought. I did one pass on the whole thing, and it didn't seem like I was sanding at all after drying for a week. But and then I went back and did a second pass, and the second time I went a little bit slower, and kind of the top coating, whatever, was already kind of scuffed off, so the paper wasn't clogging as much, and it worked a little better the second time around. I also went around with this light here, just on an angle to cast a little shadow. You can see craters and different imperfections a little better doing that. So I went across the whole thing. And then the second night I just had to come back and do like these edges here and the centerpiece and just touch up a few spots and make sure I hit everything. So that was a night and a half of that. So that was last night when I was finishing on that. And it was a nice night last night. It was like 70 degrees. It was a little humid, but it wasn't that bad. And kind of looked at the forecast, and today and the rest of the week's going to be hotter and hotter and real humid. So I was like, and thunderstorms. So I said, I think I have enough time to tape it and paint it maybe. So I did a taping, and then I had an hour left. And I said, I'm just going to paint it. And of course, I didn't bring my camera equipment because I was going to film it this morning, because I was going to paint it this morning. I was going to film the sanded area before I painted it and then film painting it. Came out good enough. This is it. It's done. I got no drips in it. It looks really great from this angle. I'm looking at it right here. I keep looking at it because it's like, look, looks really good. And you got to remember, you're going to be standing here. Your knees are here, so you're not getting the same angle I'm getting right here now. I'll pan you across and show you my intent today. My lunch hour here, I'm gonna kind of take all this tape off so it's not like super stuck to this thing, and then I have to let it dry for a week. Fully cures in 2 weeks, so I might not do anything else back here for a couple weeks. I'll work on other things in the meantime. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Whether you watched my full version that I put out or you foreshortened it yourself to skip over some of the boring parts, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Now, one final note before I totally shut this down here today. When I said some products have good and bad points, I think was what I meant to say. The one thing about this rolling and tipping and this product itself is it doesn't touch up well. You can't sand it and buff it out. So if you have something that you have to touch up, could be kind of difficult to do. So keep that in mind when you use this product. I think they do have other products in their line that actually can be buffed and touched up, but I'm not really 100% sure. So do your own research and figure it out. I know there are other paint products on the market that you can do that with, because I've seen people use them, but I can't vouch for them because I've never used them. But I might use them in the future, because I don't know if I'm going to use this product on the hull for that reason. So I don't know, maybe I'll do another painting video someday, but I think the rest of the painting with this product I'm probably not going to film much. I'll just give updates, but we never know. So with that, until we see you again, have a good one, and we'll see you really soon right here on Renovation Sportfish.